Been factoring expressions with rationals. So we are going to have two options here for solving these. And so I'm going to give you kind of two options. So when we're factoring with rationals, where it's really the same as the last lesson, except that one, we are using rational numbers like fractions, or we might be using decimals. Okay, so when we do that, okay, you have two ways of doing it. Option one is going to be thinking about it like we did with whole numbers, and you're going to think, what do I multiply times this number to equal the other number? And then guess and check. Okay, option two is you are going to divide by the factor. Okay, so I'm going to show you both options for each example. Okay, so you can notice that we don't have any instructions because they're literally the same, and it's asking, can you factor out the coefficient of the variable? Remember, the coefficient is that number that's being multiplied directly in front of the variable. Or can you factor out the constant? So you might take the constant, which is the number that's not attached to the variable, and you might factor that out. In this case, it says factor out the coefficient of the variable. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do option one. Okay, so if we know it's telling us to factor out the coefficient, our coefficient is 1/4. So that means that 1/4 is going to go in front of the parentheses, right? So now we are going to think, okay, 1/4 times what number gives us 1/4 k? Well, just k, right? If we just multiply 1/4 times k, it will give us 1/4 k. That one's pretty easy. Okay, so then next we're going to think through, and if it's a minus here, I'm going to keep it a minus. 1/4 times what number is going to equal 3/4? So if I had a fraction here, what fraction would it be in order to equal 3/4? 4 times, so remember, you just multiply across. So numerator times numerator equals numerator. 1 times what equals 3? Well, I know that 1 times 3 is 3. And then 4 times what equals 4? 1. 4 times 1 equals 4. So this number here is 3/1, or just 3. Okay. So I kind of used guessing and checking by like thinking about the number that we're factoring out, our factor times what number gives us our original products here. So in this case, 1/4 times 3 gave us 3/4, and so that's how I got this factor here of 3. Okay, another option, remember, okay, option 2. Sorry, I did these kind of on opposite sides. Okay, option 1 over here. We're going to do option 2 over here. Option 2 is where you take 1/4 and you divide it by you take the original number 1/4 and you divide it by what you're factoring out. Well, anything divided by itself, right, is just 1. And so we know that. And so 1 times k is just k, so it still gave us just regular k. And then if we think about 3/4 divided by 1/4, okay, and we do keep, change, flip, that's going to mean 3/4 times 4/1, which is going to give us 3 times 4 is 12 over 4 times 1 is 4. Well, 12 divided by 4, or 12 over 4, is really equal to 3. And so that's how we got our second number there. So you can see that we really got the same expression, 1/4 times k minus 3, okay? Okay, we really got the same answer just by dividing or kind of guessing and checking. So let's do the next one. This one is telling us to factor 1/6 out of the expression. So when it tells you what to factor out, that is what we are going to put in front of our parentheses. So I'm going to factor out 1/6 out of my parentheses, okay, and I'm going to do option 1 over here again, just so that it's consistent. So I'm going to think through 1/6 times this equals 1/3. Well, I know that an equivalent fraction to 1/3 is 2/6, because 6 we probably want to find something that's equivalent. So let's go ahead and think through what 1/6 times what could equal 2/6. Well, 6 times 1 could equal 6, and 1 times 2 could equal 2, and then that's an equivalent fraction. Right? So 1/6 times 2/1 gives us 2/6, which is really 1/3. Okay, so that means that 2/1 is what we're multiplying times p, because 1/3 was originally times p, so it would really be 2p. And then 1/6 times what equals 1/6? 1. So we're going to do plus 1, because anything times 1 gives us itself. So 1/6 times 1 gives us 1/6. Okay. Option 2, in this case, is easier. This guess and check takes a lot of knowledge of those equivalent fractions and just having that memorized. So this is a little bit easier. So option 2, you would do 1/3 divided by 1/6. You would take that original fraction and divide it by what we're factoring out. And remember, that's keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep this as 1/3. We're going to change this to multiply, and we're going to flip this to its reciprocal, which equals 1/3 times 6/1. When we do that, we get 6/3. What is 6 divided by 3? Okay, that's the same thing as 2/1 or 2. And that's how we get our 2p. Okay, and then again, 1/3 or 1/6 divided by 1/6 is just 1, and that's how we get our 1 right here. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to example 3 and 4. Okay, so this is a decimal, 3.1w plus 12.4. So it says factor out the coefficient of the variable. Here's the coefficient of the variable. So I'm going to factor that out and put it around parentheses. 3.1 times what gives us 3.1w? Just w. So we don't really have to do any work there. But 3.1 times what gives us 12.4? So option 1 is thinking through, Okay, I know that 3 times 4 gives me 12. And so those are my whole numbers. I wonder if I can do 0.1 times 4. I can also multiply that before, and that would get me 0.4. And so if I added those together, that would be 12.4. Okay, or you can think through 3.1 times 4 gives us 12.4. Okay, so that means, so that worked. So that means that 4 is the number that goes here. So it would be W plus 4. Okay, so we kind of guessed and checked. The other option, right, is to divide by the factor. So where you would take 12.4 divided by 3.1. Move our decimal over. And then we would do, how many times does 31 go into 12? 0. How many times does 31 go into 124? Well, 31 times 4 maybe. 4 times 1 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So 124. So it goes in 4 times. 4 times 31 is 124. So that gets a remainder of 0. So our answer is 4. Okay, you kind of can get it the same way. All right, remember this is our coefficient of the variable. Okay, so that would be if you factor out that coefficient, and the rest is here. And last but not least, we are going to factor negative 2.1 out of the expression. So this is saying it wants negative 2.1 in front of our parentheses. So when we do that, okay, what is, okay, negative 2.1 times what gives us 4.2? Well, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be times 2 because 2 times 2 is 4 and 0.1 times 2 is 0.2. Let's just guess and check. 2.1 times 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And then we have 1 decimal space. So it goes right here as 4.2. Oh, good. Now, remember, it's a negative times a. It needs to be a positive in here in order for us to factor out that negative. Okay, so that would be 2v, because it still needs our variable in there. And then this is really, remember, this is really plus a negative. So this is really plus and then negative 2.1. So if we're factoring out negative 2.1, negative 2.1 times what equals negative 2.1? 1. So what our answer would be is negative 2.1 times 2v plus 1. Okay, again, you could have done this by doing negative 4.2 divided by negative 2.1. A negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive, so our answer is going to be a positive. We move all of our decimals over. 21 goes into 42 2 times. 2 times 21 is 42. So we subtract. Okay, that gives us 0. And so it would have been a positive 2, which is what we got right here. So either way, we get that number 2 by either guessing and checking or dividing. Okay, and that is going to go on page, excuse me, it's going to go on page 34 of your notebooks. So you're going to put factoring rationals right here on page 34.